Good morning, Bucknutters. The sun came up again today. What do you know? It is Tuesday, January 6th, 2026. Good Lord, that doesn't even sound right. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change, joined as always on Tuesday by Garrick, Hodge, and Mark Porter. Garrick, not in his palatial Columbus area estate, and we will get to why that is. But very interesting time here. An emotional end to the season, and then you go right into the transfer portal, and X number of Buckeyes have chosen to ply their trade elsewhere. Let's just start with the low-hanging fruit. Garrick, we know information is not being distributed from the WAC pleasantly. They're in the middle of trying to retain their roster and add some excellent players through the portal. Ohio State doesn't really approach the portal the way a lot of these other programs do, as you can see. A third of Iowa State's team is now at Penn State, and you can see some other schools like Texas Tech are super aggressive in there. Ohio State, not that style. So, Garrett, can you kind of bring us up to speed on what you've seen out of the portal so far, what you expect to see going forward, etc.?
Yeah, the information, like you said, Dan, coming out of the WAC is very limited and very selective, mostly because Ohio State wants to be very diligent about this whole transfer portal process. They want to be very open and communicative with their players. And as we've said countless times on this show, the priorities for Ohio State in terms of building a roster, there's three of them. And it starts at the top with player retention, first and foremost, number one. They want to keep the guys who they want to keep in the fold in Columbus, first and foremost. And obviously, when you talk about the culture and everything that goes into that foundation, the biggest thing that could potentially derail that is an outside guy coming in to take who someone perceives to be their job, right? So there has to be open lines of communication there, and they want a certain player to hear that a potential player is coming in on a transfer portal visit from them and not necessarily from Twitter, right? So they're being very selective about what gets out there and who's visiting and whatnot, and they're being even more selective about who they'd like to take in the transfer portal. Now, in terms of what's happened, there's been 2 additions so far, and one of them is a lawn snapper. So we won't take up much time about the lawn snapper. Hey, lawn snappers are people too, and they got to snap the ball. And unfortunately, you really only notice them if a snap goes awry.
I was just going to say, let him screw one up. You'll know what his name is.
Yeah, that's true. But we'll start with some positive news. Mason Williams, who some will lovingly dub as Will Kasmerica Jr., transferred into Ohio State from Ohio University. Again, he's following the Will Kasmerica path. Caught up with Mason. He took a visit on Saturday to Ohio State, and very cut from the same cloth. An inline blocker that Ohio State's really going to love on run blocking downs, but he also has some pass catching chops, more than 250 receiving yards for the Bobcats last year. Mason said that he is friends with Will specifically, and that he talked to Will about what it's like to play for the Buckeyes, and obviously Will said very positive things about his time in Columbus. And Mason's going to be a guy that has 1 year left of eligibility, and I know people will scoff and say it's a 3-star transfer, but I always thought Will Kasmerica was a very underrated part of Ohio State's offense in terms of sprinting the edge, getting the ball carriers open in space. And I'm sure Mark can talk a little bit more about what a guy like Will Kasmerica can really do for an offense, and specifically a running game. But there will be more additions to come. Who those will be, who knows right now. But in terms of getting things going, I know some people think that Ohio State didn't necessarily need a tight end, but I think this is a pretty good pickup so far.
Yeah, for what it's worth, Will Kasmerica is going to get drafted. He's one of the guys. I don't know if you guys, Dane Brugler's my guy for the draft, and I've had him on a few times. He talked about Will extensively about how he's kind of made the move. And in terms of him being a 3-star, Mark, you actually know about him when he was at Mogador. You can talk about that because he's an Ohioan. But keep in mind, you're getting a guy who's like, what, 22 years old probably? He's a grown man now. So you're not talking about a 3-star anymore from a small town in Ohio. You're talking about a grown, ready to contribute right away, tough guy. So, Mark, are you surprised? And the latest of the Ohio Mulligan program, I might add, which is I am a huge fan of, which is basically guys play their trade elsewhere, and then they get guys we didn't offer from Ohio, and then they kind of join the Max Clairs and the Philly Daniels of the world being the most recent and obvious. Your thoughts on the addition, maybe what you knew him? Are you surprised he's made this leap?
Yeah, Mogador is a small town right down the road here, but it's a football town. It's a really unique football town. You can't pull in the main street during football season without it lined with like every player's name and all the cheerleader signs. I mean, they really get into it. They had a nice run back in the day of like state title runs, but it hasn't been that way recently. I know I digress there, but that's the background. Division 6, Division 7 school, real small school. He got dinged up because of his who he was playing against in high school. He was a great all-around player. He dominated that type of competition, but he only had MAC offers coming out of there. And much like other kids who come out of there and develop, he has fully developed. We had a Canfield tight end go down to Ohio U last year, so he's familiar with the position and him especially. And they said he makes plays. He makes plays in the run game and the passing game. And you alluded to the blocking on the edge. And then me being a tight end, I know how hard it is to set the edge. And with all the zone blocking Ohio State does, with all the motions they use for their tight end, he'll fit in perfectly. That I think he's brought in to be a blocker more than a receiver, if you ask me. And I think I'm hearing Dan say this like a year or two ago. A lot of the tight ends that go to the NFL are going for blocking. Okay. And if you can't block, you're not playing in the NFL. And you see that a lot with NFL tight ends. It's an unheralded job, but this will be the type of guy. He's not going to be flashy. He's not going to come in and, like you're saying, steal the show from anybody, but he's going to be a piece of the puzzle, even if it's the H tight end or the move tight end. But very solid player. I know OU did not want to lose him. They can't afford to lose players like that. I'm not sure. And I asked if he's as good as Will. I specifically asked that, and the people there really couldn't connect the dots and say he's that much better or different. So, I like the way you said it. It's like Will Kazmarek light or whatever you want to say. It's kind of the same thing coming in.
Keep in mind, I'm just looking at this of the Ohio State players that are still in the NFL. Nick Vanette.
There's a handful of tight ends that are playing.
Jeremy Ruckert.
That's the one I was just thinking of. I was going to say, there's the guys that you wouldn't think are still in the league.
No, here's the one.
Because they block, they're still in the league.
Luke Farrell.
There you go.
That's the one. Luke Farrell has been in the league for a decade, and I don't know if he had 12 receptions at Ohio State. And plus, we're waiting on Max Clair. Maybe not the year everyone expected, given what he did at Purdue, but still, I think 43 receptions is like third most in Ohio State history. We used to have the running 30 catch joke here about tight ends. Getting him back would be big. He's almost like Max Clair on the offense, kind of like Kenyatta Jackson on the defense, that getting to bring back a guy like that. You talk about Jackson's familiarity with Patricia's scheme. Claire, that's another year and another offseason to work with Julian Sayin. Considering the fact you're losing Carnell Tate. Go ahead, Mark.
I'd cut off a pinky for 30 balls. So
yeah. And Claire is one of those guys who's very interesting because he's probably a third-round draft pick, and third-round draft picks make about what Ohio State tight ends make. So you got a real choice to make there. Whereas in the past, I don't think it was vital at all. Okay, so we will be following the transfer portal, and like I said, you can follow this in real time. Go to 24/7 Sports, go to their transfer portal drop-down menu, and there's all kinds of lists. If you hit latest transfers, put it this way: if you check it and then check it 5 minutes later, there'll be new names in there. And they also put in there when a guy actually transfers, where he's going, or if he comes back. So if you want to follow it, that's the place to do it. Keep in mind, we got boots on the ground in all these sites and all these towns. So we're not just doing it from the Ohio side. You got it from every side, and we need to do that. So getting to our positive PR part of the day. Garrick is going to tell you why he's in Texas. He's been battling flu-like conditions like a third of the country is, and he's soldiered through for us. But he's there for a good reason. He's got to talk to some very interesting individuals. I'm going to let him take it away here. Garrick, the floor is yours.
Well, before I get into that, you want to address the Chaz Coleman elephant in the room before we do that?
We can address that. I just think there's a lot of varying chatter on him. But you can say we've heard that he's visiting. Yes. We've heard that he loves LSU, so you can take it from there.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add here outside of the normal talking points. Patrick Murphy confirmed yesterday that he is supposed to visit Ohio State this week. I believe if that visit happens, it'll happen soon, possibly today. I also know that LSU and Tennessee are making very competitive offers for Chaz. That doesn't mean that Ohio State's out of it by any stretch of the imagination, at least at this point that I know. But here's what I know about Chaz. I know that specifically he as a player is one of the most talented and best edge rushers in this portal class to dream on, if that makes any sense. That he is a potential game-changing talent with 3 years left of eligibility based on his frame, his skill set, and just every position you could deploy him as, whether it's a stand-up edge or a defensive end. Now, having said that, that's a guy that will command a good chunk of change from anybody. But at the same time, this is also a guy that at the college level only recorded 8 tackles last year, as much as he flashed. For example, Zion Grady, freshman defensive end at Ohio State, also flashed and recorded 13 tackles. So as much as I always think sometimes with transfer portal players, when it's your own school's transfer portal players, you're like, yeah, whatever. They weren't big contributors anyway. But when you just hear a big flashy name of somewhere else, you're like, oh, man, we got to have that guy. And not saying that Chaz Coleman wouldn't start at Ohio State next year. But I do know that there is a limit. And people will say, oh, Ohio State needs to get with the modern times. And listen, when it comes to Chaz Coleman, this is a guy that's worth taking a huge flyer on. He's a guy that's worth a significant investment, but also this is a guy that is a lot more potential than production right now. This is a guy that if you put onto Ohio State's roster, he's inevitably going to start week 1 next year, and you're going to have high expectations for him, and we're going to write no less than 15 Chaz Coleman breakout articles between now and August, right? But also, there's something in the back of your brain like, man, I hope he lives up to it. Whereas, I'm just using this guy for an example. If Dylan Stewart would have hopped in the portal, Dan would have been like, you go get that guy immediately. I don't care what it takes. That's a proven guy that's done consistent production. You know what you're getting from that guy. Day one, he's going to the NFL draft, surefire first-round talent. Anyway, the point being is that there are guys that it's worth breaking the bank for no matter the cost. Dylan Stewart, even though I don't think he's entering the portal, hypothetically would be one of them. Caleb Downs, when he entered the portal for Georgia, was certainly another one. Quinshon Judkins, when he entered the portal from Ole Miss, certainly one of them. Chaz Coleman, worth a significant investment, worth a very fair offer, worth, honestly, probably one of the biggest offers to a defensive end in the country in this whole transfer portal cycle. But there is a limit that if the bidding gets out of control, I don't know if Ohio State can get to. Now, I know I'm projecting doom and gloom here, but if there's any silver lining, Chaz Coleman came from Ohio. A lot of people have connected Chaz and Ohio State ever since there was speculation of him entering the transfer portal. And the thing I've learned with Ohio State recruiting is that they seem to do really, really well when every single person on the planet counts them out. The most recent example is DJ Jacobs, the number 1 overall commit, who I got told literally the day before he committed to Ohio State, it's done. He's going to Miami. So let's just pay attention to this one over the next 2 days and kind of see where this all unfolds.
Mark, you know this guy. we've gone over some of this before. Maybe a quick review of what you knew about him and his recruitment and his talent coming out of Penn State, and then maybe some of the stuff without getting into specifics that you've heard, being that you tend to frequent those areas where he may have gone to high school.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to junior year when I was watching tape of him as a quarterback, and Warren Harding had another quarterback there that he was in a battle with. And I remember watching the tapes with my son, and I remember saying, which one would you give the job to? Because they both had a pretty good tape, and it was a 50-50. The one kid transferred out, went to a different school. Chaz stayed there and played quarterback. And then the journey starts where, boy, this kid, he looked like Terrell Pryor at quarterback. I mean, he was big and long, and you kind of knew he wasn't going to be a college quarterback, but in high school was a lot of fun. And eventually someone on that staff said, hey, let's go put this kid on the defensive side of the ball. But before that even happened, he camped as a tight end at Ohio State, worked out the whole day there, and everyone thought, okay, this is going to be the position. And we still didn't have it right then. And I say we as in all the evaluators who just didn't know. And you didn't know where his heart was. But, boy, it was about halfway through that senior year where he was coming off the edge and just blowing people up. And the offers started to trickle in, like someone got a hold of the tape and the bigger offers came. Then you saw Ohio State, and it felt like they were late to him, like he was a afterthought at the end of the season. It wasn't really, like someone they were on. And I don't know if that stuck with him where, hey, I wasn't their first choice, a couple of years ago. And but I don't think that's truly the way it happened. There was no first, second, third choice. It was a player who was changing. He was like a chameleon. You didn't know what he was. And all of a sudden he shows up with these beautiful colors in a couple of games. You're like, that's what we want. And it was too late. Penn State got him. And I think Ohio State has a relationship from that time. And we'll see what this weekend is. The one thing I'll say is we read all this message board stuff all the time before these kids take a visit to Ohio State. Let that sink in on them first before we kind of, let this ship sail. But I do see a lot of rumors and message board things where this isn't a done deal. Notre Dame is in this thing. There's other schools that are popping up, and as they should be. If he's the number one player in the portal, what do you think? No one's going to make an offer because they're scared off that he's going to go visit Ohio State. So I think if you want these types of players out of the portal, you're going to fight for them, and you're probably going to overpay for them. And that's, I like what Garrick was saying. There's just a limit to where that can go. Because other schools are desperate. They're going to play, and I always say it with funny money. They're going to have an extra couple million or 500,000 to go over the top. And I see where they say, kids are bag chasing. I don't know anymore. I don't think you can accuse kids of that because
it's free agency.
Yeah, it's like this new thing that no one's ever been able to go through before.
It's NFL free agency.
He's literally sitting there for the first time taking phone calls with an agent. Like, he wouldn't even know how to bag chase. There's not even like a routine of how to go down that road. But I get that sentiment. Dan, am I the most cynical or most jaded person here? Probably. I'd be the first one to say that, kids will do dumb things for that extra money. And I have a history of stories just from this year of people who are doing dumb things for money. So we'll see. I like the Wedding Crashers reference.
Yeah, a couple things. One, OSU 2732 asks, is it worth paying more than when Jeremiah is getting paid? I don't think it is. Let me just tell you.
It wouldn't cost that.
Well, hold on. Let me answer this. It's not close to what Jeremiah is being paid. Okay. And putting Chaz Coleman and Jeremiah in the same sentence, if you say that out loud, you may get struck by lightning. Okay. That is literally diametrically opposed. Secondly, Dylan Stewart comparison to Chaz Coleman. I like Chaz Coleman. I think he's got a lot of potential. Dylan Stewart is the very first announcement that you heard out of any team was South Carolina retaining Dylan Stewart because, one, he's from D.C. Guys from D.C. listen to offers. Trust me. Two, he is a plug-and-play 15-sack guy, like literally. Top 10 in the draft, edge rusher. Chaz Coleman, if everything breaks great for Chaz, becomes Dylan Stewart. That's not a realistic option. So that's just, there's that. I mean, that's just an outlandish comparison and a good one by you to differentiate what we're dealing with here.
But you know what I'll say is he's not going to compare to Jeremiah Smith on our roster, but there's some other team that doesn't have a Jeremiah Smith that's going to say, you are our prize jewel. You are our Jeremiah Smith. And I don't know if he's that good. I don't know if he's that good, but I think some other team would do that and be like, yeah, here's our crown jewel. But we could talk about this all day.
This I will say to you with a heavy degree of certainty. Chaz Coleman is not going to get half of what Jeremiah makes. So that's a guarantee. Let's not worry about that. Jeremiah is on his own team. Jeremiah is literally like, you can look at everybody's pay scale. You ever look at one of those charts and it's got like the dots? I'm not good at math and I don't understand charts, but it's got all the cluster of the dots. And then there's this one dot over here. And you're like, oh, Wilt Chamberlain? Yeah, that's Jeremiah Smith. Don't even, he is literally in his own category. Deservedly so, I might say.
Yes.
When you're the best player, and I mean, if you want to hear people talk about Jeremiah Smith, wait till you see the draft coverage coming up of Jermod McCoy at Tennessee, who's going to be rated as the #1 corner in the draft. And one guy said, I love him. And then I watched him try and guard Jeremiah Smith in the playoffs. And I was like, I will trade my first 2 draft picks this year for Jeremiah Smith next year. That's what the guy said. So Jeremiah is literally an alien of just financial and physical proportions. So don't even include him in the mix. Now, the highest paid player other than that on the Ohio State's team would be someone like Caleb Downs. I would not pay Chaz Coleman what I would pay Caleb Downs. That will upset your locker room. You are going to upset the Ohio State locker room if you bring in guys who don't play as much as the guy in front of them and make more money. That doesn't work for Ohio State. I know people don't want to hear that. They believe that long term, that's going to be their approach. They are not coming off that. So people need to, the people who want them to like go and buy and like go into the LSU mode or go into Texas Tech mode, that is just not going to happen. Now, if Dylan Stewart had reached out to Ohio State or however that works behind closed doors and said, I want to come to Ohio State, then Ohio State would pay for that, just like they would pay for Jeremiah Smith. But comparing Chaz, who I would really love to be at Ohio State, to a player like Dylan Stewart or Jeremiah Smith at this point, that is just not what we're talking about here. That's not even fair to Chaz Coleman. I mean, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I don't want to cut you off here.
No, go ahead. I was talking too much.
But one of the posters that Woody Hayes, let's give this guy some credit, put up a topic, the portal delusion syndrome. And I thought that was kind of funny, but I think he's
topical
into something that's very topical. And then I feel that you're right. Just because these kids are popping up in the portal doesn't mean we pay them Jeremiah Smith, Caleb Downs, Kenyatta Jackson money. You have to properly evaluate them. Now, certain teams are so desperate, they're going to go spend their money for these players. And just like NFL free agency, I know this summer, Dan, we had to talk about NFL salary caps. And I said, the first thing I'd want to do is if I was a head coach is bring in a couple NFL guys and sit my staff down and say, hey, please outline for me the 5 or 10 biggest mistakes that have been made in NFL history and screwed up people's caps. What have they done? And you know what the number one thing is? Overpaying for players that, have these the Kyler Murray contract.
Overpaying, paying good players great money. That will kill you.
Exactly.
If you play good players great money, you will lose.
And Tua and Kyler Murray are two to come to mind where you're stuck with these contracts. And Denver did it where they got rid of Russell Wilson and took like $100 million cap hit, and it's unbelievable. They can fill the team. I think this is a situation where you say, here's our number for him. We want him really bad. But I also think with this portal delusion syndrome, there's 4,000 players in there, and I think someone else commented, how many of them you think are Ohio State caliber? 20? Maybe?
What's that?
Give or take. They could really come in and plug and play and solve a problem right now. I got news for you. The best players on most teams are being paid, and maybe some of them are getting loose because teams can't pay them, but there's not that many where you're just going to go out there and just solve every problem again. We have snipered it the last couple of years and got 2 or 3 that fit in perfect. I like that method. When you're when you're the king, you don't have to take chances. When you're Texas Tech or Miami or Tennessee, you got to take some chances to get yourself back in the ring. And then they got themselves back in the ring. Hats off to them. They bought some players, and we've talked about this for 2 years.
You were right. I was wrong.
And you know what? I heard you yesterday on the podcast with Dave, and I was like, geez, that's the most jaded I think Dan's ever said, because you said, here's exactly what you said that made me think you came over. You're like, this isn't 5 years ago. This isn't last year. This is totally brand new this year, and I'll go a little deeper on this. Dan would always say, but we have facilities and coaches and culture.
My thing was the NFL, though.
And we will get you to the NFL. And we will get you that money on the back end. And that is still so true. And that is still going to get people. But I think you can see Dan just like,
but see, here's the thing. Here's where it changed. I'll tell you exactly where it changed. And it changed with David Bailey. That's just an anecdotal example.
Oh, good.
David Bailey is a defensive end who played at Stanford. He transferred, and he was good. He would have been drafted last year. He went to Texas Tech. He's going to get picked in the top 10. Couple things. I didn't think guys would transfer from Stanford to Texas Tech. I was wrong. I also, and this is for me personally, this is what I have to get over. When I evaluated talent I don't like guys that transfer, generally speaking.
Yeah.
So for example, you guys remember a guy named Josh Doxson that played at TCU, and the Redskins picked him in the first round. I would never pick a skill player in the first round that transferred, because you weren't good enough to play at the first school.
You know what?
I don't understand that. And so now that doesn't mean that. Now people transfer for every kind of reason. So Akeem Mesidor? No, it's not. It's Romello Height at Texas Tech. It's his fourth school, and he's being rated in the top 50. My thing back in the day was, if you quit on two schools, character-wise, I don't want anything to do with you. 2 years ago, so it's obviously now, more than 50% of the starting quarterbacks were transfers. So the problem is, I was trapped in the mindset of character decisions on transfers. That's just not the case anymore, man. Good dudes transfer. So
I'm 100%.
It makes it so hard now, because that used to be an easy character flaw for me. I'm like, Ohio State, we don't need transfers. We need 5-star guys. Even now, when I look at transfers, if you're at like Bowling Green, did you start at Auburn, though? Because if you did, then I might have more interest in you, because you have the talent. You know what I'm saying? So I was just wrong on that. I got to change my mind on that. Go ahead, Mark.
No, I just want to support. I always thought that about transfers. For you to transfer, you're either a disgruntled person
or a quitter.
Or a quitter. And then the price you had to pay to sit out of here and go somewhere else, it's like, wow, this guy was really disgruntled and really unhappy. Who wants a guy like? Boy, the sympathetic part of us is now there, where this isn't about that anymore. You can be a great person, a great human from a great household, and you just hit the portal, because that's the opportunity in this day and age. It's totally different.
I'll say it, and I just did not think that would happen. Yeah. So, I mean, I did not think Texas Tech could do this. That's basically what I'm saying. Texas Tech, we're both all football fans. None of us ever took Texas Tech seriously until this year, ever, under any circumstances. You never considered them even close to being a peer to Ohio State. Even when they were in that running gun, goofy offense, and even when they had Michael Crabtree. Now, dude, they're loaded. They are loaded. And look what they're doing for next year. They already beat us in the transfer portal for Brewster's kid, Robert Brewster's son, Jaden Brewster, whatever. So it's changed, man. I was wrong.
And parity's coming, okay, because that's what happened in the NFL, and it's here. But here's what I worry about.
It's here. Look at the Final Four.
It's here, and it may get worse. And this is something I ran by someone I was talking to, and this will be my last digression before we get in Buckeye in the Sky, and it kind of leans into Buckeye in the Sky. If you look at the Big Ten, and you look at Maryland and Rutgers and Northwestern and all these teams we have to play, if they had a defensive lineman or a linebacker that was as fast as the guys at Miami or as good as the guys at Miami, what would happen to those players? They would leave. Right. They wouldn't stay at Rutgers. And where would they go? Ohio State, maybe Michigan or Penn State, Notre Dame or whatever.
LSU, Texas Tech.
Okay. So you're watering down your own conference every year. You're just totally taking any talent then you're beating those guys and you're thinking that your team is good when they don't have any players that are any good because you've made sure of it. So when you do get into playoff speed where you run into the freaks that are going to show up on playoff teams, you may be good enough to beat them, but you're not ready to beat them, especially not after 25 days off. You're not ready for that game speed that showed up at Miami or whoever may be bringing those type of players to your table. So when we talk about parity, you're butchering your own conference. The bottom half of your conference will be parity at the bottom. The top half will be parity at the top. And you're going to have a churn of different names coming through. But, boy, follow the money now. And that's how this is going to go. And then like, I'm not saying I'm happy you've come over to the cynical side, but it's every fan. It's every college coach. Nobody likes the system. And I know we're going to put Garrick to sleep because he hasn't talked in a half hour. But
no, I get it. You're right.
Nobody likes this system. Nobody.
So I want to make this one quick point, and then we'll go to Garrick about what's going on in Texas. And Dave and I discussed this yesterday. And here's another thing that's working against Ohio State perception-wise and the transfer portal. The portal haul Ohio State got 2 years ago, I think, is going to go down in history. Maybe not the greatest mass. It's going to go down in history. It's probably the greatest transfer class of all time, if you think about it. Caleb Downs, right off the top, is probably the best defensive transfer of all time. He's in there. Will Howard, who did better transfer quarterback-wise? You can do as good, can't do better. He won the national championship. Seth McLaughlin, plug and play. Quinshon Judkins. We added Quinshon Judkins to Travion Henderson. Who were the two best rookie running backs in the NFL this year? You can make an argument they're both from Ohio State. That's not normal. That's just not a normal occurrence. I'm not even going. Will Kazmarek came over in that group, by the way, as well. They didn't just get lucky; they nailed it. Okay.
Julian Sayin too.
Julian Sayin, I'll use that. That's when you're going to make the argument for greatest ever. I'll use that.
Yep.
But in terms of, it's almost a technicality but still, like I said, if they had won in this year, I would have sent Saban another ring. All right, but just. Perspective is important, and we're gathering it ourselves too. This is uncharted waters, man. Mark knows more coaches and talks to more assistant coaches than anyone on the earth. And he goes into it. Breathe. Come on, Jason. You'd have your own show if you could do it. Garrick, who else is in Texas that we need to know? And especially the main guy there that you got to talk to, I think is the one everyone wants to hear from.
Yeah, I'll do rapid fire here so Mark can get to Buckeye and this guy. But I arrived at San Antonio, Texas yesterday for the start of Navy All-American Bowl Week, which is essentially a huge congregation of some of the best players in America from the 2026 and 2027 classes. It's going to be a really fun 4 days of practice starting today from 10 a.m. Central Time to 3 p.m., and then they're practicing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then they're finishing the week with the Navy All-American Bowl on Saturday at 1 o'clock on NBC Eastern Time. And the 4 Ohio State signees of note that are here and will be playing in that game that are the most, obviously, they're about to be on Ohio State's campus in a few weeks, are Sam Greer, offensive tackle, Jordan Thomas, cornerback, Jerquaden Guilford, who was a late addition to this week, and I certainly did not complain that they decided to add him to this bowl. And last but certainly not least, Chris Henry Jr., who I caught up with yesterday and just put a story up on the front page. I went a little longer than I typically do on these stories. It's about 2,000 words. So if you have a short attention span like I do sometimes, make sure you take 3 different breaks to get through all the way. But I was very grateful for Chris for giving me some time yesterday. We had a wide-ranging conversation going from everything from how he's excited to catch passes from Julian Sayin that season, what exactly happened during those 72 hours where it felt like the bottom was falling out every 5 seconds. Recalled his commitment where 2.5 years ago he's just a kid entering his sophomore year of high school and talking to a bunch of reporters, and Pac-Man Jones is in the background yelling, "Hey man, you going to commit to the Ohio State or what?" So we took a trip down memory lane there. And maybe more importantly for going forward, which Ohio State fans will certainly get a kick out of, I also asked his thoughts on Ohio State's new wide receivers coach, and he gave a pretty funny story on how they got connected. I'm not going to spoil it here. I'm going to make you go read it.
How big is he in person? You got a chance. Is he as advertised? I know sometimes
he's every bit is. I mean, he's far taller than me. I'm about 6'2", so that's usually my measuring stick. Is he taller than me? And he is every bit as 6'5" as advertised. They also measured his height when he walked in, so yes, that is confirmed.
So he measured in at 6'5"?
I believe so, yes. But I mean, he measured in at my eyesight at 6'5" because he looked about 3 inches taller than me for sure.
Is it bad that I'm so cynical? I don't even trust measure-ins anymore because I know some of those guys are like, yeah, we just measured him a couple inches light. We better not be the one to piss him off and tell him. No one wants to be that guy that, hey, you're a liar. But he is.
In fact, they want to be the ones who like, hey, come here, you're a little taller.
Yeah, God damn, you're joining the club of jadedness, and so they're all juiced. I'm surprised.
Mark, you've created a monster.
Now I just got to pollute the other guy up here.
Yeah, well, it'll take about a year, Garrick. You'll come down to the gutters with us.
So, Garrick, who else are you going to get a chance to see? Are there any guys down there that are uncommitted and any 27 guys to look at? Because it's not that's a new kind of in the past few years. It used to be all seniors. Now they'll bring a couple elite younger guys.
Yeah, actually, one that I was really surprised to see yesterday at check-in that I was like, we could have just done this last week, 10 minutes down the road. But Davis Seaman, Bishop Watterson product, that's an offensive lineman, 27, obviously a big Ohio State target in that 27 class at offensive line. Said he's really focused in on 3 schools right now: Penn State, Auburn, and of course Ohio State. Jake Hildebrand is a Arizona 27 offensive tackle who's a top 150 prospect. Caught up with him recently. He released a top 10, and Ohio State's included in there. He said he's potentially working out an official visit to Ohio State, and is really excited about what Tyler Bowen has going on. I'll have an update from him sometime this week. And then Reed Ramsey. I mean, basically, if it's not an Ohio State signee, there's a lot of offensive linemen here that are worth paying attention to, which is honestly probably music to the ears of Buckeye.
I was going to say, can they all come home with you on your flight?
Yeah. Every time I write about a Ohio State skill position, there's always at least 1 or 2 comments that's like, yeah, that's great. I hope he comes here, but can we start writing about offensive linemen, please? That's who we need. It never fails, no matter what position I write. But anyway, Reed Ramsey has a top 5 of Ohio State, Texas, Georgia, Miami, Alabama. He's also considering Ohio State. And then another one, I'll give 2 more before I wrap this up. I know the dean was really high on this guy, and I'm going to get to watch him this week, and I'm really excited to see how he performs, especially against Chris Henry Jr., is California cornerback Danny Lane out of Mater Dei, who Ohio State has been really high on for a long time. He came to camp at Ohio State in June and held his own against Jameer Brown. So when you have those 2 guys going head-to-head, gives a pretty good indication of how talented this young man is. I think it's a USC versus Ohio State battle there. Looking forward to talking with him and kind of getting more of a clear picture on where that sits exactly right now. And then last one I'll talk to, and this one is kind of a under-the-radar prospect that I don't think I've talked about with Dan or Mark much at all, is Texas running back Sarab Baker, who was recently offered by Ohio State and a heap of other programs after he absolutely just dominated the Texas high school football playoffs, put up video game numbers, I'm telling you. And this is a guy that I could imagine vaulting up the priority list very quickly for Ohio State. Now, he's not going to get to David Gabriel George's level. Let's kill that hype train before it gets started. But I know that this is a guy that Ohio State really likes, and this will be my first time really truly sitting down and evaluating him. So that's a guy I'm really excited to talk to and kind of watch in person to see what the hype's all about, because a lot of blue blood programs are coming after this guy after the last month he's put together on film.
I'm going to let Garrick go here. Mark and I are going to do some eye in the sky, but you can follow Garrick all day. We did a little early today because he's got to get out and get to practice, but he'll have a running thread, kind of checking in with him all day. So he's your boots on the ground at the All-Star game. If you have any questions for him, if there's guys you want to see, he's your eyes and ears down there. And then there'll be multiple stories and videos coming out of there as well. And 24/7 has over under 25, 30 guys down there covering everybody else, taking pictures, getting it all done. So it's a great event. And we're going to get to know some guys better, especially Chris Henry. So if you haven't read that, definitely after Mark and I chat here, go hit the front page. Garrick, I'll let you go. Thank you, my friend.
All right. Goodbye, gents.
All right. Now, Mark has been tasked with the autopsy. I know some people say, oh, if you can't handle looking back at the Cotton Bowl, we've given you 40 minutes. You can boogie. Okay, so let's address this in the chat. I did not address this.
Oh, boy.
I know that.
Oh, boy.
Ask yourself this question. There's people concerned about Matt Patricia becoming leaving. Ask yourself this question. If you had a football team and you needed a defensive coordinator, who would you want to be the defensive coordinator? Matt Patricia would be pretty high on that list, given what he's done so far.
He's going to make some short lists.
This is how it's going to be at Ohio State now going forward. You're going to want a lot of people from elsewhere, and a lot of people are going to want what you're doing. And we have to kind of have a benefit of the doubt, I think, to it, which I'm still willing to extend. I don't see this past season as a failure. I know some people do. I just don't think that way. So we'll try and stay positive here. Now, Mark has done the autopsy. And we'd always do Buckeye on the Sky on every game. This one, we had to really get deep on it. We've done all 4 quarters. The first 2 were free. The third quarter ran yesterday. The fourth quarter will run later today, and we'll tease that. And then later in the week, I'll run them all in one piece. So you can sit there, and those of you who just want to completely geek out can do that. All right.
We did it. People, the number one complaint we get about Buckeye in the Sky is it's not long enough.
I know. And then we did 4 pieces. Then people are like, I can't handle it. So
there we go. I was like, when you put all 4 of them together, which I did, it's a 19-minute video. I mean, it's like watching a half-hour sitcom if you've had to put commercials in it. Boy, is it educational. And, you think it's going to be painful, but some of it isn't as bad as you think. Some of the mistakes aren't as bad. And sometimes because they're not as bad, you're almost mad, or you're like, man, that was a pretty silly thing. Okay, Miami comes out in man-to-man. They ran a ton of cover 3, a lot of man-to-man. You see the assignments. They're actually going to double Jeremiah Smith. And what I mean by that is this guy right here is going to have under. This guy in yellow has a man-to-man. And the safety is going to cheat that way over the top. So it's a triple team basically to shut down Jeremiah Smith. When you talk about teams preparing for him, they do a lot of preparing. This is also going to be a safety blitz. You're going to see the guy in the middle of the field here light up in green. He's coming here on an X stunt. So when you do play cover 1 and man-to-man, you're going to be able to do some creative things, blitz a guy and double a guy. This double team doesn't work. There's only one route that he could have possibly run to make this work, and it's splitting between those guys at the most perfect, opportunity to kind of get behind one and in between the other before that safety gets there. And you saw the holding there, which was the penalty, so this was going to be a first down either way. But, I mean, Jeremiah Smith looks like Calvin Johnson here, just guys bouncing off of them, running through the defense. But that was an improbable play. That was not what you would expect. So when you see this scheme here, you're going to see the guard and tackle have to step out to the end man line of scrimmage. And that guy on the end is not even going to come. He's going to back out of there, and that's really going to screw it up. But we have to honor that at the snap of the ball. The center is locked up on the nose man. If you notice, that's going to create a void for someone to run through. And Dan said it yesterday, 26-year-old linebacker running full speed at an 18-year-old who's been out of high school for less than a year.
This is horrible.
Yeah, I mean, he got underneath his pads, and the word is that Bo Jackson was catching there. He thought he was going to get down low enough.
Mark,
he thought he was going to be able to.
That's bad, but that is on the spectrum of bad. I don't blame Bo Jackson for being 18 years old. I don't even know if that was Akeem Mesidor who rushed in there, but that would make me worried. That play makes me worried going forward. Like, we need enough. I think the reason Donaldson was playing more in the second half was probably because he's a better blocker, and he's not even that good at it. But that you can't have that happen. I'm sorry, Bo. Go
No,
ahead.
no, and you're right. That's
Can
one
we
of
see
those
that
ones-
again?
Yeah, we could definitely. I'm sure if Bo Jackson tunes in, he'll be like, "No, don't do that."
No, but I want people to understand. The people who are getting on Julian Sand and being like, "He's not good in the pocket." That's not a pocket.
No, and you know what? I freeze him actually when he gets to the top of his drop to show that there's nothing there. I mean, there is just no quarterback. I don't care if it's Joe Montana reincarnated. You're not getting out of that trap, and the whole thing collapses around you. And then this isn't much different. I mean, all we're going to do is just ISO the pass protection. Now he's in a wide 9, and what that means is he's out really wide, and that's going to give him some build-up speed coming off the edge, much like that middle linebacker. And our offensive tackle, much like the last play, Julian's
It's not
going to
out
get
quick enough.
Yeah, I mean, he dips underneath. Julian's at the top of his drop right there. That ball cannot come out that quick. So if you're trying to take some heat off
That has
Julian,
nothing. I'm not trying to interrupt you, Mark. That has nothing to do with the quarterback.
exactly, yeah, and that's why we do this. Well, did Julian get back there and stare at something and not throw it? In fact, he does everything he can to save this play and get it out of there. Which okay, that looks a little better, but 2 instances right there of just one-on-one battles being dominated by other guys, and that's never fun to look at. And I don't want to digress, but we talked about it earlier. The age on some of these championship rosters, that's going to be something else that's studied. 5th-year seniors are greater than 5-star freshmen. Okay, so have that debate, and we could probably do a podcast on that. Okay, so you see Ohio State here. They got the same coverage, cover 3. They got 4 guys. And here's what I want to point out. I'm going to stop this. Throughout the year, you notice that we played 2 linebackers, Reese and Styles, all the time, and I'm pointing to them. Peyton Pierce should be this guy where McLean's at. But we played so much nickel where Downs is a linebacker, McLean's is a linebacker. I think other teams considered that light, where, hey, let's go run at that 180 or 190-pound safety and go – take advantage of that. He's not built to come down in this box and mix it up with the tight ends and whatever. And this is a play where, he gets blocked. You're going to see this receiver come in. Oh, let's do the offensive line schemes. It's simply a zone. They're just going to wall out guys here, and you're going to see the center and guard double team up to the middle linebacker. It's not a complex scheme. People, I'll pause this for a second and get on a rant. People are like, why don't we do more creative things in the run game? Like what? Like what Miami just did to us, line up and just smash us in the face and hand it off to the left. Sometimes it's not about creativity. It's about smash mouth. And this is about as smash mouth as it gets. This receiver is going to come down and get McLean. And we're going to show that block here in a second. But you can see Kenyatta Jackson's walled out. Sonny Styles is just standing out there walled out. He's not constricting the hole. The next guy that's going to get pinned in there is Jeremiah McLean. And then you're going to see Reese. They're all locked up. You got to get off the blocks, gentlemen. And that's why this hole was so clean. And this was so painful because we needed them off the field. We needed 5 minutes and 54
This is late
seconds.
in the game. Yeah, you needed a 3 and out
this
bad.
is like that wasn't a first down. That was another 2 minutes off the clock is what that run was. This formation was, if you remember at the beginning of the game, they went unbound, or I'm sorry, they have a strong run side here where you could run behind the tight ends and you have receivers on the other side matched up 2-on-2. This is a run play to the left side. If he wants to hand it off here, he could. And what you're going to do is you're going to try to get the flow of the defense to go with the run. And if they go with it too hard, you throw the bubble. Caden Curry's the guy on the bubble there. If he comes too hard, that bubble screen will be wide open. Caden Curry does an excellent job of recognizing it and getting his butt out there. I'm not so sure he doesn't get clipped. Now, Peyton Pierce is in a lot of trouble. He should have been the second one out there, but he's buried inside for the run. Igmanosin's getting kicked out. But I think Curry here gets clipped. I mean, he pounds that guy. And I know within the couple yards of the line of scrimmage, you might be allowed to hit people like that. But there's your clip. Defeat the block the wrong way. And again, 1:49 left in the game. We needed the ball back on that play on 3rd and 4. This is unbalanced. It's the same unbalanced they ran at the beginning of the game where they faked play action and threw the touchdown pass to Mark Fletcher. We're selling out to stop the run. And here's what I think the call was. No, we don't want to let him score. Okay. But we either got to sting him in the backfield or do something crazy or let him score. So I think the defensive line was actually on a task where we're sending everybody. If you get there, you get there. If you don't, back end, let him score because our linebackers in McLean, they just totally stand back there. They make no attempt to go after the ball carrier. So it was a true, like, hey, let's play for the touchdown and onside kick and see if we can get it that way. Depressing feeling to have to do that at the end of the game and let somebody score to get back in it. But this fourth quarter was hard because you needed to make plays and you simply could not make the plays. And it came down to individual battles. And I think that's why so many fans are having this visceral reaction to trying to watch this. Is it was their heroes, the guys that wear capes for them, were not wearing capes in that fourth quarter.
So I'll leave you with this, and then we will let everyone go. This is going to be a record, probably the longest show ever. They got the ball back down 17-14. The offense sputtered. The special teams screwed up the punt and lost 20 yards on the punt. If you guys remember that, we had to repunt it. Then went from the 10 to the 30. And then the defense let them down. Okay, so you got your offense, your special teams, and your defense all failed consecutively when they needed it. There's plenty of blame to go around. You don't need to worry about dicing up the blame pie when that happens. You got beat. If all three of your units get beat in the fourth quarter back to back to back, you got beat. It's hard to say, hard to deal with, but and there's a lot of changes we can make. And Mark and I could go on forever. And thankfully, we'll be back on Thursday with more tomfoolery and hijinks. Have a good one. Nutters of Buck.